foolish mortals.
Hello there. Are you insane? Get out of here!
Remain seated with your seatbelt fastened.
Right, off you go.
Welcome to Average Joe Orlando. Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Average Joe Orlando, reporting for KMV Travel. I'm your host, Joe, and today we're going to be discussing Universal Orlando for kids. Now, a lot of people will think Universal is mostly for adults or big kids, or they only have big rides, and you only take kids to Disney, not Universal. However, I will say I was one of those until I brought my niece and nephew, who at the time were 3 and 5, to Universal and discovered how much there really was to do and really got to see through their eyes what they enjoyed and what they like. So I think today we're going to review the 4 Universal parks, so Universal Studios, Islands of Adventure, Volcano Bay, and Epic Universe, and discuss everything there is to do there for kids. This episode of Average Joe Orlando is sponsored by KMV Travel, a travel agency that helps families of all shapes and sizes plan personalized vacations and create unforgettable memories. No matter where you're traveling, to your favorite theme park, aboard a cruise, on an all-inclusive getaway, or beyond, the dedicated advisors at KMV Travel will provide personalized travel guidance and unmatched service at no additional cost to you. To learn more and start planning your vacation with expert guidance, visit kmvtravel.com/Joe. Well, as I suggested, let's start at the top at Universal Studios Florida, since that is the original park. That's where we're going to start. And I will say, I'm not going to just be discussing attractions, but experiences and things for kids to do. However, for kid rides, as soon as you walk in, Universal has recently, in the past few years, actually just started adding more things for kids, and also I'd say making things a little bit more kid-friendly, updating some of their kids' areas. And when you walk in the park, you have the Minions. Now, the Minions are huge for kids. They're going to be part of the new park. So if you don't know, Universal is building a park called Universal Kids in Frisco, Texas, and this will be the first of its kind park. Think more like a Legoland, but with Universal IP characters in there. And I can see this being a test to grow for more parks, since this is basically going to be a park for kids with those smaller flat rides and a lot of those more kid-friendly IPs, such as Minions. You got Gabby's Dollhouse, Jurassic Park. You got the Jurassic World Camp Cretaceous, and mostly like the littler ones that will enjoy that. So with that, they actually have expanded their whole front of the park to include the Minions, and you have their Minion Mayhem ride, which is their simulator, which is a 40-inch height requirement, and then right across the way is Villain Con, which is a moving conveyor belt, so all ages can go as long as you can stand up there and hold up your pistol to play the games. Now, I will say Universal is great about doing child swap, and they do include that on basically all their attractions. They'll have a family room. So if you do have a child that wants to experience the queue, or if you're like, hey, we still all want to go through as a family, you could do the child swap and just ask the team member out front, hey, do you offer child swap? A lot of times they'll let you know they have a family room up there or how to work at that attraction. Family rooms are generally a room right by the front of the attraction, so after you wait in the line, one parent can ride either with the other child or by themselves, and then come back in and swap and watch the child, and then the other parent can ride. So everybody can at least enjoy if the kid can't ride or doesn't want to. Now, also in Universal, they have a lot of great character meet and greets. So if you decide to go straight, as soon as you walk in, you'll hit that Minion Land. If you decide to go over to the right, you have Hollywood. And that's where you're going to have a lot of the characters such as Scooby-Doo. You'll have the Simpsons characters. They bring out a lot of different ones, sometimes more popular, sometimes they'll switch them out. But they're really good about character meet and greets. And the great thing is usually not very long lines. As you continue down that way to the new DreamWorks Land. So the new DreamWorks Land is where the Kids Zone used to be. So if you were there years ago, you might remember they had Fievel and Barney and Curious George. Well, now they have updated this land to include Shrek, Trolls, and Kung Fu Panda. Now this will have only one attraction in there. However, they're also going to have a show and a lot of character meet and greets. So you can go in, you can meet Shrek and Donkey and Fiona, or you can go through Trolls and you can meet Branch and Queen Poppy. They also have the Trolls Troller Coaster back there. Now this is a 36-inch height requirement. This was the old Woody Woodpecker coaster, just rethemed. And then they're also going to have a Kung Fu Panda training camp where you could actually do an interactive show with Po. And then back here is also a Poppy's Playground, so a little playground for kids. There's a swamp playground, and then DreamWorks Celebration Show, which is going to be a bunch of the DreamWorks characters on an interactive kind of dancing show. So a really good area for kids. A lot of kids will actually spend almost the entire day back here because there is a lot to do, and it is made for kids. Also back in this area is my personal favorite attraction, ET, which is only a 34-inch height requirement. Now that could be a darker ride for children, so they may not be as interested. And in this back corner is also animal actors on location. And this is your animal show where they show different animals from movies and how they perform the different stunts and tricks they do for movies. So another great area for kids. This whole back of the park, I would say, for Universal Studios would be really that go-to place for kids. However, as I mentioned, now the Minions are out, and also the Despicable Me characters, and then you also have all the characters on Hollywood Boulevard can stretch across there. As you go around to the Simpsons land, yes, maybe the Simpsons ride may be too intense for your children. However, there is the Kang and Kodos Twirl and Hurl, which is, think of more like a funny Dumbo kind of ride. Men in Black is a good family ride. However, it does have that height requirement, so you may not be as interested and could be a little bit scarier. But as you head around the corner, the rest of the park, of course, has all the shows and the atmosphere going on. And inside the Wizarding World of Harry Potter, while it is a roller coaster in Diagon Alley, you have the interactive wand experiences, and all the shops are really fun to walk around. I know when we went with my niece and nephew, they were just excited just to walk around and see everything. And, of course, take the Hogwarts Express. Now, don't forget the Hogwarts Express. You do need a park-to-park ticket to get over there because it does connect both parks. However, that is a family-friendly attraction, and it is different depending on which side you go on. So heading from Diagon to Hogsmeade or Hogsmeade to Diagon are two different experiences, so more things to even do. But speaking of the Hogwarts Express, that takes you over to Islands of Adventure, their second park. So over at Islands of Adventure, a lot of people will probably just think, well, yeah, Dr. Seuss World. Obviously, Joe, that's where the kids go. Yes and no. So when we took my niece and nephew, we did head to the Seuss Landing, so the Dr. Seuss area, which does have a lot of stuff. However, there was more even to do in this park. But starting in Seuss Landing, you do have a playground in the front. If I ran the zoo, where they could walk around, interactive elements. Of course, then you also have the carousel, so the carousel, so generic kind of carousel. You have one fish, two fish, red fish, blue fish. Now, this one, you may get wet on this ride, so I do advise to be prepared for that one. And then, of course, you have the Cat in the Hat, which is a 36-inch height requirement. And then last but not least, for attraction-wise, you have the Seuss High in the Sky trolley train, also a 36-inch height requirement. Now, this land also has characters that roam. So during the holidays, you'll have the Who's, and obviously Grinchmas will be back here. But during the year, you might have the Lorax, Sam I Am, etc. So if the kids are familiar with the Dr. Seuss characters, great area to go. Plus a lot of fun food as well. If you go into the Circus McGurkus, they'll have the different food. Walking around this park, I'll take us on a loop. I will say Lost Continent really doesn't have anything for anybody at this moment. They do sometimes have different character meet and greets that will come out, but nothing too crazy over there. And then, of course, you have the Wizarding World of Harry Potter, which you could always go into the Forbidden Journey, and you could ask to take a tour of the castle, which is nice. So if your kids are into Harry Potter, maybe too small to ride the ride or just not interested, you can go and actually tour the queue and walk around and see the entire castle inside. Now, over Jurassic Park / Jurassic World, there is going to be a bunch of areas there for kids. Now, you do have the Jurassic Park Discovery Center. Now, this is, think about like the first original movie, where the movie starts and ends. This is kind of a little play area in there. They'll have small areas with dinosaurs. They'll have the veterinarian area. Nothing too major. They used to have more in past years, but still a great area inside to see the different dinosaurs. And then they're going to have the raptor encounter, which I will say will be scarier for young kids. The biggest hidden gem, I would say, in this park is definitely Camp Jurassic. Now, Camp Jurassic, I've seen my niece and nephew spent hours in there to the point where we're like, okay, time to go. I've never been in there as an adult, so taking the kids in there, I was surprised and overwhelmed how giant it is. So this is a whole like prehistoric playground, and they have nets, theme slides, they have water cannons, the whole paddock where the animals are contained. So we thought it was fun where you see where the dinosaurs could be. And then they actually had a whole cave system with different bridges. It's enormous in there. Very, very cool, very interactive. Lots of kids in there. Definitely a place where you have to watch them because it is big. Luckily, there is only one way in and one way out, but definitely a great area for the kids. Also, great for the kids. You have the Pterodon flyers. So that's like the pterodactyl ride that everybody sees flying over. You do need a child to ride this ride. So it's kind of a funny one when you think about it. Minimum height is 36 inches. Maximum height is under 56. And then for supervision, need to be under 48 inches. need supervision. So if you're between 36 and 48 inches, you have to be accompanied by adult. So this is one of them that you literally cannot ride unless you have a child with you. And I know this is one of the ones that everybody wants to ride, especially the adults, but they can't unless they have a child. Basically a 90-second flying ride, so they could see what it is beforehand to see if they're maybe too scared or not. However, really cool for the atmosphere and maybe something you might be interested in doing other than all the great playground areas in this park, since this park does have a lot of great playgrounds to go to. As you head around the corner, it is Toon Lagoon. Now, Toon Lagoon are 2 water rides. However, there is also the area called Me Ship the Olive. Now, this is over by the Popeye rides, the Bluto's Bilge barges. That's a tough one to say. And Me Ship the Olive is like a kids play area, so another one. So that's actually 3 lands that have something in there. And this is passageway, slides. They have like horns, bells, and then of course you have the water cannons where you could spray people where they're on the ride below. So nice little hidden gem kind of back there behind. So if you're not interested in going on any of the water rides, still get up close and get to have a little more interactive fun. And then last but not least, Marvel Superhero Island. I know this was kind of a hit, especially with my nephew, because you can meet Spider-Man here. So this is where you can meet all the Marvel characters, and a lot of younger kids are into the Marvel characters. However, would think they are at Disney. However, they are not. Here in Florida, they are going to be at Universal. So there are 4 attractions over here in the land. You have Spider-Man, you have the Hulk, you have the Storm Force, and then also Dr. Doom. So a little bit more bigger rides over here. However, great for character meet and greets and a lot more for the kids to see over there and enjoy. Now, Universal's third park is Volcano Bay, the water theme park. And same thing, it might be one of those that you're like, well, they have a lot of big slides, and they do. And they have a lot of great slides. I love Volcano Bay. It's my favorite water park I've ever been to. Super immersive, very detailed, and some great rides. Now, they have the body drop slides where you stand there and the floor drops out from underneath you, or the slides that just end and you plop into the water. Now, those are scary, obviously, and not really for kids. However, they do have a lot of great things that are for kids. So once again, we did take our niece and nephew over here and did get to experience what they got like to do. So much that they keep talking about it on their next trip. We are going to Volcano Bay just because they loved it so much. And from the looks of it, you might be like, there's not a lot. Well, there actually is a good amount. So they have an area called the Tot Tiki Reef. Now, this is a enormous area actually inside. It's after the volcano over to the left. I've never been in there before until my niece and nephew came and we followed them in and they loved it. No, it's splash pads. They have water pistols. They have slides. There's water dumping from everywhere. Places to walk around. It is big. It's interactive. It gets pretty busy in there, full of kids. We went first thing in the morning and they didn't want to leave. Finally, we were like, well, there are other things. Let's go explore. They have a lazy river. So there are 2 rivers. There's a lazy river, and I call it the crazy river. They have one that's very fast. You have to wear a life jacket. I do not suggest that one for kids. However, they have the lazy river where you can go in there and get on a tube. And the nice thing about Volcano Bay is they have complimentary life jackets all around. So you can grab them for your kids and use them for the entire day at no charge, which is nice. So right at all the entrances to lazy rivers, they're going to have those life jackets that the kids can put on so they can go experience the lazy river. In addition, you have the wave pool right in the front. This was another big hit for them. They do play the drums right before the waves come, and they aren't going to be as big if you know like Typhoon Lagoon, their waves. They will not be as big over here. This is more of a little bit family-friendly one, and they really enjoyed it. They had their life jackets on. And on the opposite side, there is actually a area called The Reef, which has another pool with no waves that looks over the wave pool. So we did spend some time in there doing the different triggers and getting to look at everything. And this is where the slide that goes down the volcano has the glass tube that you can go in there and look at. So they really enjoyed that. And then, of course, they're like, let's go back to the lazy river. Let's go. They went all over. A nice thing they have over here also at Volcano Bay is going to be the cabanas. Now, these are an upcharge, but however, if you're traveling with a family, I highly suggest that, and our friends over at KMV Travel can help you book this. And the cabanas over at Volcano Bay, either you can get a regular one that goes for 6 people, or you can get a family cabana that will go up to about 12 to 16 people. And the cabanas are great because it's going to give you a quiet place to retreat to. They come with a refrigerator in there that has bottles of water, comes with a fruit platter. They also have a server that can bring you any food or drinks that you like. So if the kids want to take a nap in the middle of the day or just need a place to kind of unwind, instead of having to camp out and get a chair, a cabana might be a nice offering. There's also premium seating, which has some covered seating, especially on those hot days, which is nice. So they do have different offerings for you. Now, towels are not included at Volcano Bay, so I would suggest bringing your own. You can rent them, however, that will cost you. So it might be one of those things you might want to bring a towel to keep the kids warm in between. They do have locker rooms and then also the food locations, so you might want to bring some better footwear to wear around. Either water shoes aren't allowed on a lot of the slides, however, they'll be in the kids area, so it wouldn't be too big of a deal. However, just plan ahead, and maybe a cabana might be something that might be a little bit extra, but might make the day a little bit easier for you also. Now, last but not least is Epic Universe, so their newest park. So we're going to head over there. Now, Epic Universe, I would say, probably has the least amount for kids, however, has the most amount for immersion, and maybe, depending on the kid's age, a land that you'll never leave. So if you're anything like my family, you might have somebody who is very into Super Nintendo World. Now, Super Nintendo World does have 3 attractions in there, and inside Super Nintendo World, you're going to have Yoshi's Adventure, which is a 34-inch height requirement. However, this is a slow Omni-Mover attraction. You're going to have Mario Kart, Bowser's Challenge. That's a 40-inch height requirement, and this is an interactive kind of game. And then you're also going to have, which I would say more for the big kids, the Donkey Kong ride. So the Donkey Kong is Minecart Madness, also 40-inch height requirement, so more of a family toaster. So it depends on the level of your kids. If they're really small, they might not be as interested in these rides. However, they might be interested in the characters and the land. Now, the land is very overstimulating, I will say. It's very loud. There's a lot going on. It's definitely not calming. So it really is one of those of knowing your children and maybe seeing like how long you want to spend in this land, because it is fun. But as I said, it could be a little overstimulating. There is the Toadstool Cafe, which is nice. So you can go in there and see the characters also. Now, I'm not going to talk too much about Dark Universe or the Wizarding World of Harry Potter, just because those won't be as kid-friendly. Dark Universe being more of the spooky stuff might not be for kids. Harry Potter right now only has 1 attraction, which is a little bit of a larger attraction. They do have the Cirque Show, which is actually very good. However, once again, we'll have those large puppets that might be a little bit frightening for children. And inside the Middle Celestial Park, you have the roller coaster as well as the carousel. And the carousel might be something that might be best for the kids, especially at night when it lights up. It's very cool. But I will talk about Isle of Berk. So How to Train Your Dragon Isle of Berk, another big hit for kids and for families. Now, this area is enormous. This is probably the largest of all the portals at Epic Universe and has the most to do. Of course, you have the How to Train Your Dragon show, which is not just good for kids, but also good for adults. I enjoyed it. Now, this is with Toothless that flies over the audience. You have a character meet and greet, and then there's also roaming characters. So you can meet Toothless. It does have usually a long line, and the characters do roam around. So a lot of things to see in this area. But they have a few rides. So they have the Fire Drill ride. Now, the Fire Drill ride, no height requirement on that one. Child swap is available. And this is a water ride. So you're in a boat, and it goes around, and there's different targets that you might want to hit. Then you also have the Hiccups Wing Gliders. Now, this is a family roller coaster. Minimum height is 40 inches for this one. I think more like if you know Disney, like a Slinky Dog Dash, but maybe a little bit more intense. Have to say, this is a surprise hit for me. You have Dragon Racers Rally. I wouldn't suggest this one for kids, though. This is a 48-inch height requirement and has a lot of height elements in there. But the best thing for kids, and where I would say we're going to spend most of our time when we go to Epic Universe with my niece and nephew, will be the Viking Training Camp. Now, this is for young Vikings to discover types of dragons. They have places to climb. They have slides. They have different interactive play elements, great views of the land. So a great little play area for the kids inside this one. So as I said, Super Nintendo World and Isle of Berk from How to Train Your Dragon might be those 2 best locations if you go over to Epic Universe. So if you're ready to have not the average vacation, be sure to reach out to our sponsor, KMV Travel, a travel agency that provides complimentary vacation planning assistance to families of all shapes and sizes to destinations including theme parks, most major cruise lines, all-inclusive destinations, and beyond. Start planning today at kmvtravel.com/Joe. Once again, that's kmvtravel.com/Joe. Link in the description box below. Well, I hope you found this helpful and maybe learned something new about all the stuff there is to do for kids at Universal Orlando. And with that, I will see you at the parks. Thanks for taking a ride with Average Joe Orlando.
You made it!
I knew you would. Is everyone okay? Hope you still want to open an account.
Say cheese! See you later!
Thanks, everybody. You were brilliant.
At this time, gather up your personal belongings and take your small grubs by their grubby little hands as you exit. Thank you.